drives me crazy. Like, at the heart of this case is a seed of a real injustice that needs to be addressed, which is that the president of the United States tried to steal the election. He pressured public officials. He lied to people. All of those things deserve redress, and now we don't get it, probably, because of her choices. And as much as I understand people who say this is no big deal, this should go forward for democracy, I'm sorry, but the rule of law and doing things correctly is just as important or more important as punishing this guy for the things that he did.
Welcome to Law and Chaos. Today we'll be joined by Georgia attorney Andrew Fleischman to discuss the latest developments in the election interference prosecution of Donald Trump, along with a wide cast of weirdos and goons. Lately, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has taken a lot of hits over allegations that she is involved in a romantic relationship with an outside prosecutor hired by her office. There are even suggestions that it may blow up the whole case. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get after it. Hey guys, I'm Liz Dye, and thanks for tuning in to episode 2. Before we get to the show, a few housekeeping notes. Until we get our legs under us here at Law and Chaos, we'll be doing one regularly scheduled show a week, dropping on Monday mornings. I recorded this interview with Andrew Fleischman, and I wanted to get it out to you early because there will be a briefing on Friday in Fulton County related to this discussion. And my goal is to get out topical episodes from time to time when there's breaking news. But generally, we're going to aim for one pod and one written post every week for the time being. And with respect to that, I just put out a piece yesterday on the E. Jean Carroll trial and Trump's decision to wow the jurors with his manly presence in court. I personally think his disgraceful conduct on the witness stand cost him big with the jury, but my friend, jury expert Rich Matthews, disagrees, and he will be on the show Monday to tell me why I'm wrong. And he will also talk about the art and science of jury selection in general, so should be a good one. Check your feed. And also, I am going to start these shows with a news item or two that I've been paying attention to. Today, my favorite Trumpland sparkle magic lawyer, Alina Habba, has been Habbaing it up in her inimitable way. This is kind of a play in 3 acts, plus a little prologue. So, on Friday, after the jury in the E. Jean Carroll case delivered that $83 million verdict, Habba gave this wacko presser on the courthouse steps where she yelled about the jurors and the judge and Joe Biden and New York Attorney General Chester James and God knows. We actually played a clip of it on Monday's show with Mitch Epner. But one of the things she said in her rant was that there was some kind of incestuous conflict between Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, and the judge, Louis Kaplan. And no, those two people are not related, not even by marriage. Okay, so there's your prologue. Now let's talk about Act 1, the mentor letter. So Monday, Habba sends this nasty gram to the judge saying that she's, quote, learned from a story in the New York Post by a conservative asshole named Charles Gasparino that Judge Kaplan and Robbie Kaplan worked together at the giant law firm Paul Weiss between 1992 and 1994. And some unnamed former partner says that Judge Kaplan was Robbie Kaplan's mentor. In fact, Habba herself is quoted in the article saying that this supposed conflict is going to form the basis of her appeal, which, look, you can't plant your own quote in Murdoch media and point to it as proof that there's this insuperable conflict. And no, a blind quote from some rando isn't going to do it either. Nevertheless, she persisted. She goes on. If Your Honor truly worked with Ms. Kaplan in any capacity, especially if there was a mentor-mentee relationship, that fact should have been disclosed before any case involving these parties was permitted to proceed forward. Okay. And then she quotes Canon 3 of the Code of Conduct for United States Judges, which says, in relevant part, a judge shall disqualify himself in a proceeding which the judge served as lawyer in the matter or controversy, or a lawyer with whom the judge previously practiced law served during such association as a lawyer concerning the matter. And that would be super relevant if during the time Kaplan and Kaplan practiced together, that is between 1992 and 1994, which is when Judge Kaplan was confirmed to the federal bench, Robbie Kaplan had been representing E. Jean Carroll in this lawsuit against Donald Trump. But the lawsuit was filed in 2019, which is a long time after that, and so this particular judicial precept is totally irrelevant. So Habba finishes by demanding that the judge explain himself to her. But before that could happen, time for Act 2. Let's call it I wish a bitch would try. From which you may surmise that Robbie Kaplan, one of the best and most prominent lawyers in America, was not amused by Haba's little stunt. So first, she pointed out that Paul Weiss is a huge firm, and 30 years ago, she was a baby associate who had nothing whatsoever to do with the head of the litigation department. So there'd be nothing for Judge Kaplan to disclose. But here is the important part, which is the last paragraph. It says, while Ms. Haba ends her letter by characterizing this as a, quote, troubling matter, what is actually troubling is both the substance and timing of her false accusations of impropriety on the part of E. Jean Carroll's counsel or the court. Accordingly, while we want to submit our response to Ms. Haba's letter as soon as possible, we reserve all rights, including but not limited to the right to seek sanctions pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11. And that was an unsubtle warning to Haba to turn around and go back the way she came unless she wanted to find herself on the pointy end of a sanctions motion for making frivolous allegations of impropriety based on some blind item in the New York freaking Post, which led to Act 3, Just Asking Questions, in which Haba backed all the way out of the room like the Roadrunner on Rewind. I'm going to read a bit of it. Dear Judge Kaplan, I write in response to the letter submitted earlier today by plaintiff's lead counsel, Roberta Kaplan. In her letter, Ms. Kaplan mischaracterizes the substance of a letter recently submitted on behalf of President Trump and makes inflammatory and unwarranted accusations against the undersigned. Contrary to Ms. Kaplan's contention, there are no false allegations of a mentor-mentee relationship between Your Honor and Ms. Kaplan contained in my January 29 letter. The purpose of the letter was simply to inquire as to whether there is any merit to a recently published New York Post story which reported on the alleged existence of such relationship. So, see, she was asking. She wasn't implying anything. It's totally different, right? She goes on to say that she had nothing to do with planting that story. Perish the very thought. Okay, in conclusion, the point of my January 29 letter was to verify whether the information contained in the New York Post article is accurate. Since Ms. Kaplan has now denied that there was ever a mentor-mentee relationship between yourself and Your Honor, this issue has seemingly been resolved. And scene. The end. All except for a tiny footnote where Haba mumbles about, quote, various other issues relating to the court's conduct, including potential bias, hostility toward defense counsel that will be raised in post-trial motions and on appeal. So fun times in New York. And with that, let's get to the interview. But just a quick mea culpa. I had some audio issues. We will get that taken care of before Monday's show. Obviously, we already have. I'm Liz Dye, and with me is Andrew Fleischman, a former public defender and current defense attorney in Atlanta at his firm Sessions and Fleischman. He's written widely about the Georgia prosecution, including at the New York Times, Daily Beast, and Slate. He's been sharply critical of this prosecution from the beginning, and there's no better person I can think of to break down the latest kerfuffle with us. So, Andrew, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
So, obviously, we have this motion to disqualify Fani Willis that was filed on January 8th. But maybe we can backtrack a bit and talk about some of your earlier criticisms of this indictment. I think you called it Baroque.
Yes. And then my piece, I called it Rococo. It's really...
Maybe that was it. I'm confusing my eras.
Basically, I didn't understand why they were bringing the case in a way that would take forever. Okay, you have a very simple false statements case here. Donald Trump told Brad Raffensperger that 5,000 dead people voted. If that's not true, and he didn't have a good reason to believe it, that's a felony. Mm-hmm. You could try that in May of 2021. Instead, there is a huge amount of pre-indictment work, including a 1-year special grand jury, resulting in a RICO indictment that was expected to take 6 months to a year to try. Now, at the time, I was like, man, maybe all this is being done for political benefit. Maybe it gets it more time in the spotlight. That's why she's willing to risk delay and do things that hurt the case, but delay it. And now we have an ulterior motive. Is there another reason why you would want this case to take forever when your romantic partner is a special prosecutor being paid hourly? That's where we're at.
Right. Okay, so do you want to talk about the special prosecutor, Nathan Wade? Because I know that you weren't impressed with her decision to hire this guy.
No, I mean, he doesn't have much relevant experience. He's not known for defending high-profile felonies or really almost any felonies at all. Mm-hmm. His practice was mostly personal injury. He spent a year as a misdemeanor prosecutor. He spent some time as a part-time municipal court judge, which typically does not involve like a lot of motions or stuff. Anything serious gets passed on to the state court. But as I noted, I think in my earlier speaking with you, he does look wonderful in a suit.
Yes, he is a handsome man. I'm going to give you that one.
And I learned that the special grand jury was told he owns 20 ascots.
He owns 20 ascots?
He owns 20 ascots. Never trust a man with that many ascots. Anything more than 15 is a red flag.
Have you ever worn an ascot in your life? I'm not the ascot kind, but...
No, I haven't, but no one has ever paid me $700,000 to look good in one. So...
Okay. All righty then. Okay. So Fulton County District Attorney Fani Wade, instead of filing a relatively simple prosecution, hired this outside guy who, looks good in a suit, obviously, but maybe isn't as experienced as he could be. She also hired a couple of other people who have a more traditional resume.
Yeah, there's Anna Cross, who's argued, I think, 60 times in front of the Supreme Court of Georgia. She's an expert out of DeKalb who's handled tons of felony appeals, very knowledgeable, good writer. There's John Floyd, who helped draft the RICO statute that she's relying on and is typically brought in as an expert for any RICO case in the state. And he was paid $100 an hour less than Nathan Wade.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. I think that Nathan Wade was paid like $250 an hour, which is, Atlanta's not the most expensive market, but that's not a very high number. That seems like a pretty reasonable amount for a private attorney, right?
Sure, it's not a crazy number. It's about on par with government work, but then you look at the billing records and you wonder whether he's working all the hours that he's billing. You see things like a 24-hour being billed in one day, billing 8 hours for reading case summaries. The point of summarizing a case is that it doesn't take 8 hours to read it. And there's not that many Georgia RICO cases to read. And, I feel like at some point the other shoe is going to drop and we're going to find some time he's billed where he's on vacation or obviously somewhere else. I think that's probably bound to happen.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly everybody in the country is looking at it. Certainly, there are a lot of sharks circling on this one and we'll talk about it because let's talk about the motion to dismiss filed by Mike Roman, one of the Trump campaign's employees who appears to have herded the cats in Georgia during the fake electors scheme. So you want to talk about that motion to dismiss?
Yeah. I mean, Mike Roman hired maybe the best possible lawyer, Ashley Merchant. She's a Terminator. She's like unstoppable. She always keeps going, even on relatively minor issues. And she dug in here. Her client was offered misdemeanor probation. She turned it down, a misdemeanor probation offer. And
why do you think that he was offered misdemeanor probation?
For the same reason everyone else was offered no jail time. The state doesn't actually want to try the case against as many co-defendants. They're trying to gnaw their leg out of the trap. Because it would be a totally unwieldy trial. And they don't want to try it before they try it against Donald Trump if the case gets split.
Okay, let me just interrupt you and maybe we can kind of break that down for the non-lawyer listeners. Because Georgia has this extremely strange RICO statute that allows all of these people to be charged together. And I think there were 19 original co-defendants, maybe it's 18, but a lot. And this is, a few of them have been pled out, but can you talk about why you wouldn't want to try that many defendants together in any event, and certainly not in one that, involves the former president of the United States?
It makes the trial take forever. It creates conflicts of interest. And also, every time the prosecutor introduces a piece of evidence, there's 18 potential objections that can be made that then have to be addressed by the court. There's not room in the courtroom for that many people. It just creates a huge amount of problems. And then on top of that, there's this case called Bruton that basically says that you cannot use the words of one co-defendant against another co-defendant unless they actually go up and are cross-examined and testify. And here you would have, I don't know how many statements being brought out. You would just have endless Bruton issues and tons of fodder for appeal. So for a lot of reasons, it's a really bad idea to try 18 co-defendants together.
And not just, all of the mechanical reasons aside, famously, there's this prosecution of somebody named, I think, Young Slime Life.
Young Thug.
Young Thug, who's being prosecuted under RICO, and it took maybe like 6 months even to impanel a jury.
8 months to impanel a jury.
That's
and then
crazy.
On day one of the prosecution, the prosecutor introduced reversible error when she said that she knew the defendant was guilty. He would have to prove that he wasn't.
Cool.
Because that is the sort of person who was selected to try a high-profile case in Fulton County.
I sense a little snark.
There is a little snark there. That's a prosecutor. An exoneree of mine dealt with that exact prosecutor in a case, making similar arguments. And that guy was not just innocent, but an actual hero who shot a woman running people down with her car at a funeral.
Wow.
So
That's
I have
crazy.
feelings.
Yeah. No, I certainly don't blame you. I'm going to play devil's advocate because we'll link to this Mike Roman's motion to dismiss in the show notes. It's got some arguments that are, let's say, more credible than others. They're
100%.
Right. So one of the reasons that he asserts for seeking a dismissal is that the Fulton County Board of Commissioners did not approve Nathan Wade's appointment. And another reason is that he failed to take his oath of office appropriately. I mean, these are kind of crappy arguments. And I think that they were presented earlier by Ken Chesbrough, one of the Trump's co-defendants who already pled out along with Sidney Powell.
Yeah, I mean, the motion resurrects those arguments, but I think those things that were improper now become circumstantial evidence of the improper relationship. So that's why you're resurrecting those arguments. You're like, why is the oath being done weird? And why did she not get permission from the Fulton County Commissioners or talk to them about this choice at any point? Oh, well, that's because something improper is going on. So It's not just to make a bad argument, but to strengthen the good one. By contrast, her motion for dismissal, I think, has no real shot. And maybe you could have tossed that one out, because I think disqualification is probably the remedy here if she's right.
Okay. Let me just interrupt one more time so we can kind of break it down for the listeners. Ashley Merchant, Mike Roman's lawyer, filed a motion to dismiss and or disqualify Fani Willis in early January on the grounds that she is allegedly having a romantic affair with Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor hired to prosecute this case, who has billed hundreds of thousands of dollars of time, more than his co-counsel on the case, a lot more than his co-counsel on the case, and in circumstances where it looks like he was perhaps hired for reasons that are unclear, let's say, right? The co-counsel are clearly more qualified. And I mean, I'm not a practicing attorney, but when I looked at this, there's no accompanying affidavit. It appears to rely heavily on the sealed, at the time, divorce filing between Nathan Wade and his wife, Joycelyn Wade.
That's true, but it is pretty uncommon in Georgia criminal practice to attach affidavits to a motion. You typically make the motion, and then you bring the witnesses in to court. And Ashley Merchant has said she has 4 or 5 eyewitnesses she wants to bring in. I suspect she's telling the truth when she says that.
Yeah, no, you've publicly stated it before, and most of the people who are outside of the state have taken your word because you're pretty prominent in this space, that she's a credible lawyer and she wouldn't have brought this if she didn't have the goods.
Yes. So I think that it's not unusual or uncommon to make a motion and then have all the evidence come in at the hearing. I don't think there's anything improper or weird about that. Mm-hmm. And the motion is just based on, a lot of people have talked about this like, oh, it's just airing their dirty laundry. It's just a romantic relationship. But that doesn't really understand the conflict, right? Right. The conflict is that a prosecutor is supposed to serve justice and to do things because she thinks it's right and for no other reason. That's the goal. Rule 1.7 says, that's our rule of professional ethics about conflicts of interest, says that you cannot be in a case if there is a risk that another interest is going to materially and adversely affect the interest to your client. Mm-hmm. So now, what happens if she dismisses the case or simplifies it? That means that her romantic partner, who may or may not be doing well financially in a separate firm, is out hundreds of thousands of dollars. Why did she choose to try the case in one particular way, in a way that takes lots of time, and not in another way that's much simpler? Well, maybe that was just her decision based on what she thought was best, but also that decision directly benefits her romantic partner. And then you add on top of that the fact that this is someone she's involved with who has paid for vacations and trips. And she personally swore an oath to never take any money outside of her proper salary. Now you got a lot of avenues.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the credit card receipts that undergird this claim about the vacations and trips?
Yeah. So Joycelyn Wade released credit card bills showing that Fani Willis had airplane tickets paid for her by Nathan Wade on trips that don't appear to be work related. Mm-hmm. So she's gotten a financial benefit. There are some rumors they were living together at some point. So there's certainly good evidence of intermingling of finances, even if she was just paying her romantic partner, her undisclosed romantic partner, money. That's a conflict of interest. But then she's financially benefiting from that. And there is Georgia case law that says that if you have a special prosecutor, you cannot pay him on contingency, which is to say he can't get a benefit from winning the case, a financial benefit. That's a conflict of interest. Well, here now you have a DA who's got a conflict that means she personally gets more money outside of the salary she swore to hold herself to by prolonging a case. So there's real meat here on this disqualification motion. It is not just a dirty tricks, Mike Roman used to do oppo research kind of thing. This is a thing that would cause concern in any case.
Yeah, I think that it's important for us who are on the liberal side of the spectrum to articulate this position, right? That you've articulated how it could violate the law, and you've articulated how it could be a conflict of interest, right? You don't have to have a actual conflict of interest, for it to be inappropriate and for it to be an inappropriate use of the public fisc, right? It's not that, I mean, Mike Roman's motion for dismissal, as you said, is probably doomed for this particular reason, right? He's not the one who was prejudiced here. Mm-hmm. The taxpayers from the state of Georgia are the ones who are prejudiced. So do you want to talk about what you think? Clearly, it's probably not going to get dismissed, although Trump has joined that motion. What do you think?
I think disqualification is likely, and it may get worse. I mean, the Fulton County Commissioner was just talking the other day about confronting Fani Willis about paying all this money, saying, listen, you didn't run a bias. How can you justify paying all this money to an unqualified person and not telling us? And Fani Willis accused her of racism. Said the only reason you're talking about this is race. And that is just not an appropriate response as a public official when people are worried about how you're spending money. And the Fulton County Commissioner was talking about all the ways this case cost money, like shutting down the streets and sheriffs. And times she confronted Fani Willis about this before. And Fani Willis had said, well, Lady Justice has no price tag. Basically putting herself beyond oversight in a way that I feel is just inappropriate for a public official.
Yeah. So Trump himself has joined this motion to dismiss and disqualify. I'm going to read a little bit of it here. He says, highly significant to the merits of the adopted motion, President Trump points out that after Roman's motion was filed and after the court announced in open court on Friday, January 12th, that it intended to hold a hearing on the motion in February, DA Willis chose 2 days later, on Sunday, January 14th, during Martin Luther King Jr. National Holiday Weekend, in a religious public forum, to make racially charged extrajudicial statements designed to defend against as well as divert and deflect attention from the alleged misconduct outlined in Roman's motion. DA Willis gave a keynote speech at Atlanta's historic Black church, Big Bethel AME, a speech wherein, without mentioning the alleged affair or even trying to put her alleged malfeasance in context, she repeatedly and inappropriately injected race into the case and stoked racial animus by, among other statements, asking God why the defendants were questioning her conduct in hiring a Black man but not his white counterparts, and why the judgment of a Black female Democrat wasn't as good as white male Republicans. So let's listen to a clip of that right now.
But dear God, are you listening? Why does Commissioner Thorne and so many others question my decision in a special counsel? Lord, your flawed, hard-headed, and imperfect child, I'm a little confused. I appointed 3 special counsel, as is my right to do, paid them all the same hourly rate. They only attacked 1. I hired 1 white woman, a good personal friend and great lawyer. A superstar, I tell you. I hired 1 white man, brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer. And I hired 1 Black man, another superstar, a great friend, and a great lawyer. Oh Lord, they gonna be mad when I call them out on this nonsense. First thing they say, oh, she gonna play the race card now. But no, God, isn't it them who's playing the race card when they only question 1? Isn't it them playing the race card when they constantly think, I need someone from some other jurisdiction in some other state to tell me how to do a job I've been doing almost 30 years?
So let's break it down. First off, I don't think this motion by itself is super strong. Even though prosecutors are not supposed to talk about cases publicly, we rarely enforce the rules against them. And the rule against talking publicly about a case has a safe harbor provision if you are responding to publicity brought by your opponent, which he or she arguably is.
What kind of publicity would that be? You mean the
Ashley Merchant motion?
Okay.
So there's arguably she's in a safe harbor, and prosecutors get so much slack on this. I would be surprised if this results in disqualification. But one thing that did happen that he probably should have mentioned is that in an earlier prosecution of a police officer who shot a man who was attempting to tase him, Rayshard Brooks and Garrett Rolfe, Fani Willis agreed to disqualify her office based on inappropriate extrajudicial comments made by Paul Howard. That's something I would have brought up if I were making that motion, because it shows that in the past she's agreed that such comments are inappropriate and should result in recusal. And he didn't do it. It was kind of a bare bones motion, if I'm being honest. As far as the allegations of racism go, I mean, it's not just that he was paid 5 times as much as the other 2 lawyers combined. And it's not just that his qualifications are limited. Atlanta has more qualified Black criminal defense attorneys or prosecutors than probably anywhere else in the country. There are no shortage of people she could pick that would bring absolutely no blowback. Okay?
Right.
I mean, when the Tex MacGyver case, this was a high-profile case, a Republican who shot his wife in a car because he was scared about a BLM protest. When that case was reversed because...
What? No, I don't mean to laugh. That's terrible. But, sorry, that's just a whole lot of unexpected words together.
Yeah, but, a black prosecutor made a bad closing argument in that case that partially resulted in it being reversed. And nobody brought up race to say that guy did a bad job. They just looked at what he said and addressed it. Georgia is full of attorneys who could have taken this case, and nobody would have said, oh, it was, we disagreed his qualifications because of his race. That's all I'm saying.
Right. I mean, and let's be clear. She's saying they're complaining that I hired the black guy and not the two white lawyers, but she's not sleeping, allegedly, with the two white lawyers.
That's a fairly good distinction. And even her, when she talks about Cobb County hiring Nathan Wade for twice the fee, and that was a white Republican prosecutor, and no one protested there. Well, first off, that undercuts her racism allegations, right? Because nobody protested there. So Nathan Wade was hired by the Cobb County Sheriff to do an investigation into Cobb County jail deaths, of which there had been a lot. Mm-hmm. He conducted a 5-month investigation. At the end of that investigation, it turned out he had taken absolutely no notes. He claimed
is it like a lawyer after Trump's heart? Remember Trump said, the lawyers I like don't take notes.
He didn't take it. So a local news station sued Cobb County and said that this investigation was a sham. The reason it had been launched was to make it so they wouldn't have to disclose open records requests about those jail deaths because there was a quote-unquote ongoing investigation.
Oh, I see.
So she brought this up in defense of Nathan Wade to show how good he was, and yet you would not select a lawyer for that job. And the judge found that it was a sham investigation. You would not select a lawyer because he was extremely diligent and hardworking to do what the judge found that was done. You would pick someone...
he's diligent enough to have billed $700,000 worth of time.
That's to have billed it, for sure. So that case, to use that as a defense, seems crazy to me because everything about that case screams that this is a guy who was comfortable maybe covering up government misconduct for ample pay. And I don't love that as a criminal defense attorney.
Wasn't he paid a higher hourly rate in that Cobb County case?
She claimed he was paid twice as much. I don't know if that's true.
I mean, she claimed in that pulpit that all of the lawyers working for her were paid the same rate, and that is not true.
There was no fact checker behind her at the pulpit.
Right. I mean, as you've said, Anna Cross and John Floyd were paid a lesser hourly rate, despite the fact that they have significantly more experience than Nathan Wade.
I think Anna Cross is paid the same, but John Floyd is paid $100 an hour less. And he is probably the most qualified person you could pick to do the job. Mm-hmm. That's a real problem. Yeah.
You know what? One thing we forgot to mention. So Wade's divorce filings did get unsealed in some measure last week. And I know you went over them because you and I had a funny little laugh about the address.
Yes. I can say he does live on Honey Pot Way, and that was just very funny to me.
Yeah, no, you fire the writers. We're all living in a simulation. My understanding, aside from that being hilarious, is that there wasn't a lot more evidence in the divorce filings of any kind of things that were going on. I mean, he doesn't come off looking like a great guy. His ex-wife is alleging that he hid his assets and didn't pay her appropriate support, but it's not a smoking gun with respect to the alleged relationship.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. There was the most important thing that came out of the divorce case we already learned about before the case was opened, which is those bills that show plane tickets being paid for. Mm-hmm. And of course, Nathan Wade is in trouble for not complying with discovery in that case. So it's possible that once he complies with discovery, there will be more stuff.
Yeah, no. So you're saying that in his divorce case, he's been hiding stuff, and that when that turns up, maybe something worse will come out?
Yes, but it was not a smoking gun. It didn't change the case very much what came out. It looks as though whatever Mike Roman's attorney is relying on, it might be more based on what eyewitnesses have told her and people familiar with the issue have told her than those divorce filings.
So tell me what you think will be the fallout here legally.
Legally, I think it's likely that a judge will order disqualification. And I think that because on any case, this would be a terrible thing to do. If you're prosecuting the former president of the United States, you need to be 100% above board. All the complaints about you have to be frivolous and dumb. And you look at how Jack Smith tried the case, is trying the case, where he doesn't talk at all to the public. He doesn't go on the pulpit. He doesn't release his plans about what he's going to do. And he has a 4-count indictment, super simple.
Appropriate for an officer of the court.
appropriate for an officer of the court. That's how you do it. If you are serious about prosecuting the man and you are not trying to get a political or personal benefit out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would maybe push back a little bit and say that state elected prosecutors are in a bit of a different situation from federal prosecutors, right? Like, look, the New York Attorney General Letitia James in the civil fraud prosecution of the Trump organization and Donald Trump and his family has behaved in ways which would be not appropriate for a federal prosecutor. Federal prosecutors are more buttoned up. They have a more stringent rule of conduct. But I do take your point that these have been, it's fair to say that these are political prosecutions in some fashion.
Well, and true. And, if you do a good job, that's all you have to do. People will recognize that you successfully prosecuted the former president of the United States. I would say the way that federal prosecutors do it is the appropriate way to do it. You should not have a lot of press releases. You should not talk to the press. In fact, our rules of ethics say you're not supposed to. Unless
just counterpoint, you're like a pinko liberal defense lawyer. You're supposed to say that?
That's true. But we have a rule that says don't talk to the public about a case if you're a prosecutor in a way that is designed to heighten condemnation of that person. And even though everybody ignores that rule, we did write it down because that was an aspirational goal for how prosecutors should act.
Squad goals, yeah.
Okay. And I think that's a good rule. Anyway, all this to say that to me, I think there is a way still, if another prosecutor got this case, you could simplify this case and get a conviction. It is not a hard case to bring if you don't make it crazy complicated for no good reason.
Okay. So let me ask you about that. Let's game this out, right? Because Judge Scott McAfee, who's presiding over this case in the Superior Court, has ordered DA Willis's office to respond to these allegations by February 2nd, which I believe is Friday. Then there's going to be hearing, I think it's on around the 15th of February, on this motion to dismiss or disqualify. We think the motion to dismiss isn't going anywhere, but suppose that the disqualification motion does go somewhere. Can you break down for us how that's going to go down?
So if Fani Willis is disqualified, that disqualifies her entire office. That's the rule in Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people, online on the various social media platforms saying, well, DA Willis should resign and, Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade should resign for the good of this case. That's not going to do it.
I don't think it would do it. Now, maybe if she resigned completely from the office, maybe her successor could say the conflict is now gone.
Right. But simply recusing and having Wade resign, that's not going to cure this conflict.
That is not going to do it at all because all those incentives were there at the start of the case. So then PAC, the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia, and a guy named Pete Scandalakis, he will decide who this case goes to, whether it's another district attorney, whether it's somebody who works for the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia, or whether it's a defense attorney who just feels like a change of pace and I'm available. So you can,
okay.
I would happily try this case. It is not that hard, but what can you do?
I mean, I think you may be a little bit conflicted because you've spoken on some platforms about it, but obviously that's not a big thing in Georgia. So go for it.
Yeah, whatever.
I vote you. I vote Andrew Fleischman.
Yeah, 100%. I tried the case in 2 weeks. It's fine. But Burt Jones, listen, Fani Willis was disqualified 18 months ago because she publicly supported the political opponent of one of the defendants, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. And that got her kicked off that case. The judge was just baffled that she would make such a poor decision. He said, these are terrible optics. And even if I can't prove it actually affected your decision, because I don't have wiretaps, the fact that what you were doing helps the person you supported politically means you have a conflict and you have to be kicked off.
Right. I believe she held a fundraiser for Burt Jones's political opponent, maybe at her house. I don't remember what it was, but she supported the political opponent of somebody she was prosecuting publicly, which is obviously inappropriate.
And it's been 18 months and nobody else has been assigned to that case.
Right. If you're wondering what might happen and the time scale it might happen on, that was a fairly easy case as compared to, 19 prosecutions, a 19 defendant RICO case, and that's essentially stalled out. Right. Once it got referred to the prosecution council. So any question of this going to trial before the election would be DOA. That's right.
So it's really, again, just really terrible, like a really awful set of choices that jeopardize this case. What I wrote in my New York Times piece is like, when you delay a case this much, there's so much opportunity for disaster to intervene. You've created so many chances for somebody to go horribly wrong. And like I was gifted by the gift of prophecy by Apollo, here it's come to pass.
Yes, it has gone horribly wrong, or it's about to go horribly wrong.
If this case had been tried in 2022, nobody would have known about the Nathan Wade stuff, or it wouldn't have looked nearly as suspicious because he wouldn't have spent a year as a special prosecutor on this special grand jury. Again, a thing that hardly happens in Georgia and seems wholly unnecessary when you have a separate federal investigation and they're turning everything over to you. I'm just sorry.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Okay, so if Judge McAfee says, the FCDA is out and kicks it to the PAC, then, God knows what is going to happen. You're saying, I think I've seen you write that it could have been turned over to the DeKalb County prosecution?
Sherry Boston would be a good choice. She's a black woman, a Democrat. Her office has a lot of bandwidth and people who are competent to try this case. So it would avoid the allegations of racism. It wouldn't feel like a windfall. You could pass it on. And, it's not so dangerous to get between her and a camera. So
I hear what you're saying. That's very funny. But I do want to flag something that you kind of just said about the bandwidth, because this is an enormous case, and it's very expensive and very time consuming. It's going to consume a tremendous amount of resources for any prosecutor or attorney who does it, unless it was Andrew Fleischman, who would just drop everything. It would be Jeff Clark's lucky day, and you would just try the false statements charge and be done in a week. But assuming that that's not what's about to happen, this is going to take up a lot of resources for whoever gets it.
Yeah, if you try it the way that Fulton for some reason wants to try it, I don't see how you select a jury. No reasonable person wants to be on that jury.
Right. Tell us why. Right. I know why, but you tell us why.
6 months or a year of making $25 a day is not good. And, and your job technically can't fire you for it, but they will find a way to fire you for it.
Right, because it's going to take 6 months. You're going to be in jury selection. I mean, I think you've said it before. People will gnaw their arms off to get out of doing this thing. That the jurors in the Young Slime Life case. Am I getting it wrong? Is it Young Thug Life or Young Slime?
Young Thug, we say, or YSL, but that might stand for Yves Saint Laurent, depending whether you believe Brian Steele, who I love.
Okay, so in the Young Thug case, the jury selection alone took 6 months because no jurors want to sit in that courtroom and do this, right? It's just going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, unless you are just a wackadoo, you're going to do everything. And then you have a jury of wackadoos, not a jury of your peers.
I mean, I'm not sure that wouldn't be a jury of the peers. It is like the Star Wars bar. All of these people are a little nutty, even though Sidney Powell did plead out.
She did, to a sweetheart deal.
Yeah, well, she's not an idiot. All right, facts not in evidence. Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen legally. But there's also been a tremendous amount of political fallout here.
100%.
Yeah, well, and that was really obvious. And I don't just mean Trump kind of screaming inanities on Truth Social. A Republican this week filed a resolution to impeach Fani Willis for acts of malfeasance, tyrannical partiality, and oppression, including, quote, knowingly and willfully withholding evidence of fraud, errors, and irregularities in the 2020 election from the Fulton County Special Grand Jury, causing them to reach a false conclusion. So apparently, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade didn't tell the special purpose grand jury that there was all of this fraud, and that's why they indicted Donald Trump in this tyrannical act.
I mean, a tremendous gift to the Republican Party in Georgia and the whack job portion of it. Governor Kemp for months, maybe years, has been saying, we are not going to interfere with this prosecution. We are going to let it go forward. I am not going to let you launch a bunch of dumb crap. And now that protective shield is gone. He's got no reason to stand in the way at this point. He can, as long as he doesn't intervene and this case blows up, he's not going to stop his people from doing it because there actually is real malfeasance here.
Yeah. So can you talk about the ways that this might get politically undone?
So first off, there's the Fulton County Commissioners problem. The Fulton County Commissioners are all mad at Fani Willis. They are turning down her request for more funding.
Right. I saw this week there was she asked for more cars for her office and they were like, no, screw you.
Yeah, exactly. Because she's not being transparent with them about how she's spending the money.
I mean, fair, right? This was a $650,000, request or something.
And she refuses to answer questions about it.
And also $700,000 to Nathan Wade, $650,000 for cars. I can see them being we don't know what the hell you're using the money for. I mean, fair.
It might mean that she doesn't get her $2 billion jail that she wants to build.
That would be tragic.
And you can hear the commissioners saying, listen, we gave you all this money. We gave you $36 million to resolve this COVID backlog. And now all you just want is a more expensive jail to hold all the people you have not indicted or tried in a timely manner. So that's the first level. There's money problems coming for Fulton County.
And the Fulton County jail's bad.
Incredibly bad. 10 people died last year. It's unbelievably unsafe. They are gang members as guards. you would. It's not a safe place to keep people, and people should not be in danger because they are in jail. That's my pinko lib defense attorney stance. But nobody was sentenced to stabbings or death.
No, 100% agree. 100%. Look, man, I can out pinko you. I think that they ought to have voting precincts in jails. I think everybody in jail should be able to vote. I don't believe in felon disenfranchisement for a second, but I'm a little bit out on my limb there.
So that's step one. Step two, impeachment by the House of the Georgia House. And gosh, they have the votes probably. I mean, what's the reason not to for them? Their voters will love it, and not a lot of people are going to be striking out to defend Fani Willis at this point. I don't know how it's polling or if it has been polled, but it looks bad.
Yeah, I mean, can you talk to how it's playing? Look, you're there, right? In the legal community of liberals or in the Democratic community, is she getting a lot of wind at her back after that speech at Bethel AME?
I would say it blew up in her face. To the contrary, Democrats off the record are saying they don't want to step out in front of her and defend her. She's not willing to defend herself or explain this in any kind of way. Nobody wants to step in front of it.
Right.
Her biggest defenders now are like law professors and former federal prosecutors who are willing to say there's no basis for disqualification here. And I just disagree very strongly. I don't see how you could look at this and say there's not a serious problem that goes beyond just a little personal kerfuffle.
Yeah, I mean, I referred to it as a kerfuffle in the intro, but that was a joke. I don't think this is a kerfuffle. I think this is probably an insuperable conflict for this office, the whole office, because, right, I mean, it looks like it was wrong from the inception. Can you, as a lawyer, speak about whether, just doubling back a little bit to the legal part, if she gets disqualified, does that mean all of the evidence gets thrown out? I mean, Donald Trump is going to say that on social media, and so are his minions, that it's going to be fruit of the poison tree as kind of lay people understand it?
No, that doesn't throw out the evidence, and whoever comes in can use that evidence. But when will they come in? That's the question. Mm-hmm. And then what happens to Fani Willis afterwards? Like, she was supposed to run for office. There's no challenger for her as of right now. I think they have to decide by March. Someone is going to jump in that race. And then...
Is it you?
God, no. I don't live in Fulton. I live in DeKalb County. So, but on top of that, there's the federal criminal problems. This could be honest services fraud. And there are federal criminal practitioners who have seen clients tried for less. And Ken White, out of California, routinely defends public officials charged with similar but less serious conduct. He's talked about that. Uh-huh. So, oh my God, you couldn't have blown up your own life more. All she had to do was not hire the guy. That's the thing that's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, this case was, as you said, rococo enough. She was in the middle of this craziness, but there were other people that could have done it and probably could have done it and charged it much earlier. I would agree with you.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, it drives me crazy. Like, at the heart of this case is a seed of a real injustice that needs to be addressed, which is that the president of the United States tried to steal the election. He pressured public officials. He lied to people. All of those things deserve redress, and now we don't get it, probably, because of her choices. And as much as I understand people who say this is no big deal, this should go forward for democracy, I'm sorry, but the rule of law and doing things correctly is just as important or more important as punishing this guy for the things that he did.
I would agree with that. I would agree, and it's a hard thing as liberals to kind of deal with the reality that this thing is going to get screwed up because somebody made a human, stupid choice, and one that we wouldn't have done. And she said in that clip, like, I'm as imperfect as they come. And I think we have a high tolerance for human imperfection, but the cost here to the public is going to be high. And if she were allowed to go forward, the cost to the public would also be high because it would denigrate all of our values.
And then what happens if the conviction gets reversed on appeal because of this qualification issue?
Right.
You're dumping that into the lap of the poor Georgia Court of Appeals, who are also elected judges in statewide elections. I mean, that is just not going to be good.
I 100% agree with that.
So if McAfee leaves her on the case, that's also terrible. Like, that's not any better.
I think he's done a pretty good job here being even-handed. I mean, all of the parties appear to feel pretty comfortable and confident in him. Even Trump, who said he wasn't going to move for federal removal to try and get his case into the Northern District of Georgia to get, federal removal and then thence to the 11th Circuit.
That still seems crazy to me that he wouldn't try for it because it creates a potential issue in his case that could go to the Supreme Court of the United States. that could undo a conviction if he had one. Honest to goodness, his lawyer's not been putting much paper out for being on a case like this. Like, I feel like Ashley Merchant is like, you ever done a group project in college and had the A+ student?
Yeah.
Her filings are great and well researched. And then other people sometimes file Me Too's and sometimes don't. And it's like, I've been very impressed with her and like kind of baffled by some of the other lawyers in the case who are still on.
Yeah. I mean, Trump's lawyer, Steve Sadow, did file as you said, a Me Too motion to join Roman and has joined in some other motions. But I would agree with you that there haven't been a tremendous amount of Trump motions, Trump hit on his own initiative. But he did say he did inform Judge McAfee that he would not be seeking federal removal because he thought that he thought he was getting a fair shake in the state court. And I think he is going to make that motion for presidential immunity or whatever.
Right. Which, whatever. I mean, we tried Aaron Burr for treason in 1807 and nobody raised presidential immunity. He was trying to, I think, help the British invade the western part of the United States. It was not good. Not a good thing.
Yeah.
Good rapper, but bad vice president.
I know. Well, speaking of immunity, I'm hoping by the time that this drops that we get that decision out of the D.C. Circuit in the federal election interference case. But stay tuned on that one. So, okay, wrapping up, where do you think that this is going to be? Do you think that she's going to face consequences politically? Do you think that Fani Willis is going to get kicked off this case? Let's wrap it up here.
I think that Murphy's Law is going to kick in a major way here. You know, Fulton County commissioners are not going to happily give her money. State legislators are not going to vote for the law she proposes and will try to impeach her. Judges are not going to take her arguments as seriously on this case in the future, and they may have to kick her off. People are going to run against her for office. She may face state and federal criminal charges. I think, you know, she couldn't have messed up more. And then her response was just like rubbing lemon juice in the wound.
Yeah, she hasn't once denied it, which is functionally an admission as far as I can tell.
Leaning into martyrdom. Such a Trumpian thing to do. There's a witch hunt after me. There's all these people trying to take me down because of who I am and how important I am to this community is not how you take responsibility when you mess up. And I just can't let that slide. So I think bad things will happen for her. And they ought to, frankly, because she did the wrong thing in every way she could have. Yeah.
And as for the prosecution, who knows?
We'll find out in 2027.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I guess let's end it on a high note there. 2027. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Andrew Fleischman. I really appreciate you being here.
Always fun to talk to you.
Law and Chaos Podcast is a production of Raise Ipsa Media, LLC, is intended solely as entertainment, does not constitute legal advice, and does not form an attorney-client relationship. This show is researched and written by Liz Dye and produced by Bryce Blankenagel. Law and Chaos Pod, copyright 2024, Raise Ipsa Media, LLC, all rights reserved.
Sorry, just tapping my mic to make sure that I'm using the right one, because sometimes I have like a little panic attack when I'm recording, like, oh my God, I'm using the wrong mic.